Good morning, everyone. The next segment of our teachers training program is the mastering the first session. So in this, we'll be looking how can we master our first session, which we take on Vedantu, and not only the first session, but we'll be seeing how we can master some our successive sessions on Vedantu. So let's proceed. Okay. So in Vedantu, we use this term of the TOS, which is the first session. So that's a general term we take internally, but first session, that refers to the first session. So under this section, we will be discussing about the following things, which is basics of how to take a session, the ice-breaking part with the student, the session preparation, the importance of first impression, and the session guidelines also. TOS is the first session guidelines and our general session guidelines which we take on Vedantu. So proceeding with the details of each and every subtopic, let's proceed. So the very first thing that we need to take care of is basics of how to take a session. So the very first thing we have to be careful as a teacher on Vedantu is that we always have to be not on time but before time, because see, coming to the session before 10 to 15 minutes of the start time of the session always makes us feel confident, makes us prepare our topic much better. We can prepare our slides, we can go through the content, we can just go through the flow of the content, and that really helps, because once we are prepared, even in similar to the classroom teaching, if you are not prepared, if you're just reaching the session on time back or late, so it never helps. So coming before the session will always help us to prepare ourselves much better for our successive sessions on Vedantu, the first session and successive sessions on Vedantu. So it's beautifully said, early is on time is late, and late is always unacceptable, especially with us. So moving on to the next guidelines, next set of guidelines. We have defined few teaching axioms on in Vedantu. As a teacher, we need to follow these guidelines mandatorily. So just be careful about the mentioned points. So I'll just quickly go through all the mentioned points. So the first point is, before we get the first session on Vedantu, like the trial session of the student on Vedantu, we always, as a teacher, we teachers have to call the student before the session. So, and why? The reason is, if we directly get into the session without talking to the student before the session, so it's like going into the class without knowing the student's caliber. So calling the students always helps us to understand the student's caliber, what the approach of the student is, what the student's requirement is, what books is followed in his or her school, what level he wants to be covered in the session. So each and everything is we are very much prepared with, and that helps us to prepare the session more quality wise. We are more prepared with the session because we are focusing, we are targeting only that particular students. So that personalization comes into the first session. So therefore, talking to the student before the session is very, very important. And then again, the next point is we have to be prepared with the content of the session. Obviously, yes, if you're not prepared, the student will not be happy, the student will not enjoy the class. So preparing the content means just focus on the whatever book the student is following in the school. We need to focus on the flow of that particular content, and then prepare our session images, everything in session questions, everything needs to be prepared, keeping that particular student in mind. So we may be taking 5-6 different students, so each and every session may be different as per the level of the student. Again, next is use the app teaching tools. With the app teaching tool, means good use of presentation, the whiteboard, good images, the content has to be good. So each and every small things contribute to the teaching tools. So we have to be very careful about using all good teaching tools on Vedantu. Again, the next thing is the whiteboard presentation has to be very, very elegant. It is not like we write haywire, we are writing upside down, we are writing in a diagonal manner. So we have to work, if at the very first go, we may not be having a good handwriting on the whiteboard, but practice obviously makes a man perfect. So keep on practicing and make the whiteboard presentation very elegant. If you think you're not that confident writing everything on the whiteboard, you can use more images. So you can look for more images on Google, just which is in sync with your topic of the day. So always go in for good whiteboard presentation, because the student is seeing that whiteboard only. He's not looking at you. Most of the times the video is not on. So the only thing that the student is looking at is the whiteboard. So therefore we have to be very particular about using the whiteboard effectively and nicely and elegantly. Okay, so the next thing we have to be careful about is conducting an interactive session. So whenever we take a session on Vedantu, make the session as interactive as you can. So throw questions, like the session can be started by asking the student, okay, whatever interest he has. So, and during the session also you can throw question on the students related to the topic, and you make the student try the question there and then, maybe in his notebook, so that the students feel important, the student feels involved. It's not that only one-sided lecturing is going on. Make the session as interactive as you can, just to make the student involved, feel involved in this session. And the next thing is like appreciating the students' efforts. That thing is also very important. Whenever a student is successful in doing a question nicely, we have to always give a pat on the student, appreciating his or her efforts, and appreciating that, okay, this is very nice, and we can use very polite and gentle words to appreciate the student, like very good, keep it up. I hope you will be able to do the next question as well very nicely. So all small things make the student feel more confident about himself or herself. So these small things, these small gestures from the teacher side always add on captivating the students' interest in the session, because these students are very young, 6th to 10th category. So they're very young, they're very docile. So we have to, apart from the giving knowledge, we have to attract the interest of the student also, just to make them focus during that 1 hour session on Vedantu. Okay, so the next thing is about the zero conceptual errors. Obviously, when we prepare our content for the session, we have to be very careful that we are not making any mistake, because we are representing a community of teachers. We ourselves, being a teacher, we are representing a community, and we are representing a brand. So just make sure that no conceptual errors should be there in our teaching. Next is some before things that you need to check is good internet connectivity and power backup, because the good internet connectivity always helps us to have a smooth session on Vedantu, and obviously power backup means, suppose that there is a fluctuation at your place, so it shouldn't be that the session is disconnected for 5 minutes and the student is waiting without any clue what happened. So we always need to make sure that we need to have good internet connectivity and power backup at our place, at our house. So that really adds to the flawless session. Like in a good flow, we can have a session without any break. Okay. And the next is system compatibility has to be checked. So that is again a major thing that we need to check. And yes, very important thing last is like avoid distractions. Avoid distraction means that we as teachers should refrain ourselves from any phone calls during the session. So please keep your phone always on silent mode. Try avoiding talking on the phone or talking to any third party during the session. Just focus on your session. And this is very annoying, because if you're talking, if the student is studying with us during the session, and suddenly we start talking to some other third person, so or on phone, or there's a background noise, so all these things have to be taken care of, because that doesn't give a good feeling to the student or the parent sitting on the other side of the laptop. So we should always refrain ourselves from such distractions. Okay, and one more thing we need to be careful about is use of videos in our session. So it is not a mandate to use a video in our session, but yes, since video establishes a good connect with the student, because the student is able to see us. So if technically possible and if your bandwidth allows, we as teachers should sometimes definitely use video calls. And also to explain some concepts, student might need your gestures, especially in physics and all directions and all. So it is always good to use video, but yes, however, using videos and whiteboard together for the entire session, uh, if not academically needed, is not recommended as well, because then uh, it is always good to switch on the video whenever as and when required. So please use your judgment and definitely use the video as and when required. And I would like to focus again on calling the student before the first session. So always call the student before the session, and immediate call is always more effective. But if you're busy, like you just drop a message to the student and call and just say that I'll be calling you at this particular time, and call at least 6 to 8 hours before the session, so that you also get ample time to prepare for your session. You're also not preparing last minute and go in the session unprepared. So I hope all these teaching actions, when we follow on Vedantu for the first session, will bring awesomeness into the sessions. So let's try to follow all the teaching actions on Vedantu. Okay. And another very important thing is ice breaking. So ice breaking makes the first 10 to 15 minutes of our, especially the first session with the student, should be the ice breaking part, because if we are into the first session, if it's a student's first session, we should always talk to the student, ask about his or her interest, ask about the school of the student, which school he belongs to, which books is he following, is he or she following in the school, and what are the interests, and then we should also try to tell something about us and try to get that connect with the student, so that students feel free to talk to you. The student does not feel, okay, there is this is just another lecture going up that will take place. So it should be more of a friendly session, not extra friendly, but yes, in a balanced way. If we do the ice breaking, the students feel very much comfortable with us and the system. So we can tell in the ice breaking about something about the system, about Vedantu and ourselves, and try to get to know more about the student as well. And yes, session preparation for all the sessions. So it is as we have seen in during the earlier slides, session preparation not only for the first session is important, but for all the sessions is very, very important, because we need to be very much confident about the flow of the topic, and images have to be aptly prepared. So I know it is not easy, but yes, when you give your best, you will get the best result. So it is worth it, and awesome sessions are a result of well planned and prepared sessions. So always give your best for the first session and all successive sessions of yours on Vedantu. And just especially for the first session, we should understand that we are giving a trial session to the students. So we get only one chance. So that's a first impression, and first session is always, it's a good saying that first impression is the last impression. So if you want the student to get converted into your permanent student, you need to give your best, and make it an everlasting impression, make it a good one. And for that, you need to give some input that we have just seen in the previous slides. So I hope all of us will be following this importance of the first session guidelines, and just take care of all the minor things that we have just discussed, so that your each and every session is an awesome session. Thanks.